Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. So my mother-in-law and I have always had a bad relationship as my husband has no siblings and my mother-in-law was very overbearing and did not respect some normal boundaries. Example, she wanted to wear white at my wedding, wanted to be in the room when I gave birth, demanded to have a say in our child's name, tried to have a say in which house husband and I purchased, and tell me how to decorate it, etc. Anyway, my husband and I have been married for nearly 10 years and threw out all the demands above and lots more. I always discussed my feelings with Hub and then told my mother-in-law no and explained why I was saying no and why it wasn't appropriate for her to ask, and thus lay down clear boundaries. Over the years, my mother-in-law had tantrums at me saying no. No one has ever said no to her before and tried to go behind my back to emotionally manipulate my Hub into letting her get her way. But my Hub has always supported me and told her we discussed the issue privately, and after hearing my feelings on the subject, he understands why I'm against it and he respects me and supports me 100%. So it's no, and that's final. My mother-in-law, however, kept asking and had tantrums, actual tantrums, exactly throwing things, screaming, and it was beginning to stress me out and affect my mental health. So I went no contact with her. Only my Hub would speak to her. She was not allowed in my house when I was there, and Hub would arrange to visit her at her home. My mother-in-law was diagnosed with an illness, won't say what to limit chance of her identity being found out, and needs a donor. She's on the transplant list, but her doctor told her to ask family, friends to get tested to see if any matches to Quicken Search. If friends, non-blood family volunteer, try to find a genetic match in her son, etc. My Hub did a test, then asked me to do one, and I refused. I told him no, as even if I was a match, I wouldn't donate. As a mother, I would never donate organs whilst I'm alive in case anything ever happened to my kids and they needed them, although I plan to donate my organs when I die. And 2, going through this operation to donate could have fatal consequences for me, as when I gave birth, I nearly died in surgery due to an allergic reaction to anesthetic and complications, and I would not risk same thing happening again and risk leaving my kids without a mother. My Hub understands my decision, but when mother-in-law found out, she called me a selfish witch. Am I the a-hole? I do not want to die, which there is a very high chance of, if I am a match. And do not want to even do a test in case I'm a match, and mother-in-law compromises my mental health by not respecting my no and nagging me constantly to change my mind like she did in the past. Edit. My husband didn't pressure me when he asked. We were having dinner and he brought up that he was going doctors next week to get tested and told me mother-in-law's doctor told her to ask people to get tested, and if I was going to get tested, when would I go? Mainly so we could arrange childcare if he was working. When I told him no, his response was, I'm of course upset as that's my mom and the situation sucks, but you're my wife and your reasons are sound as I know it's risky for you and I would never want to lose you either. And even if there was no risk and you simply said no, I would support you as simply it's your body, your choice. My mother-in-law found out I refused as she called me directly to ask, and I was honest and told her I would not be getting tested as if I was a match, I would not be donating anyway, as it was too risky for me and I would not risk leaving my children motherless, and the only time I would ever undergo another surgery was if it was to save my life or that or my kids. Example, my kids need an organ. Edit. I already told mother-in-law no when she asked me directly. The reason if I was asking am I the a-hole is because even though I made my choice, my mother-in-law gaslighted me and I was beginning to wonder if I was being a bad person like she said I was. I guess I'm sensitive and the thought of hurting someone genuinely upset me as I hate to think of anyone in pain or upset. Do not even want to do a test in case I'm a match. Not the a-hole. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you could say you will get tested to help diffuse the situation. Then tell the doctor that you're being coerced into testing. No doctor will let you donate an organ if you don't want to, even if you are a match. The doctor will simply state that you're not a match. Edit. I'm seeing a few comments back saying this would make OP a liar. It absolutely would not. Donating an organ isn't just about a biological match. They assess your psychological compatibility too. If you're not 100% willing or certain about donating, or feel coerced, then the doctor deems you as an invalid match, which is exactly what OP is. Not the a-hole. I work with people that need organ donations as well as people that donate their organs, and never have I heard someone that needs an organ say people are selfish for not getting tested for me. Typically, it's people saying things more along the lines of, I can't ask my kids to do that. It's too much for someone with kids to be put up with when they have XYZ going on. So your mother-in-law is on a different level. Your husband sounds like a gem. You're not the a-hole. Let's get that out of the way. You're also not a match because you don't want to donate. In situations like this, when emotions are running high, your husband's mom is dying, he's going to be upset no matter what. It's often the best option to just go to the doctor and get the blood test done and answer the questionnaire. About 6 of those questions are, do you want to do this, like for real, rephrased into different formats? If you answer no to even one of those different phrasings, you're classified as not a match. That is what the doctor will tell your husband, that you're not a match, not suitable to donate. Because you're not, that makes the whole problem go away. Again, you don't have to do this. You don't have to go through the motions. You're not an a-hole for straight up saying no. This is just an option for you if you need one to make your husband feel better. Next story. A bit of context. A few years back, my nieces confided in me, their aunt, of how difficult their life is in their household, how they don't get things like the other kids and all the chores they have. As soon as my nieces turned 14, they expected them to get jobs, babysitting, working at their parents' restaurant, and pay rent. Not the same amount as regular rent, but each of them was expected to pay $100 a month, which I think is ridiculous and a completely unnecessary burden to place on kids, and also an unfair one since only my nieces are expected to live by this standard. While my brother, his wife, stepmom to the nieces, don't put these expectations on their other children. My brother and his wife are of the pull yourself by bootstraps mentality, but only with my nieces. The girls then told me that they were short on rent that month, and if I could lend them money. I was completely mad, but they begged me not to talk to their dad as it would just make their lives difficult if I did. So I decided to give them 2 cards in my name and put monthly money in the account for them to pay rent, buy themselves the necessities, groceries, hygiene products, entertainment, clothes, etc. And I put them on my family phone plan. We kept all of this secret. They're now both 17 and will be going college next year, which I will be paying for since my brother refused to support them. A few days ago, the girls got into an argument with their stepmother as she wanted them to share their car, which I got as a birthday present, with the other kids, and it was a big one. Nieces said they'd call the police and report the car stolen if anyone other than them drove the car. My brother kicked them out and told them to move come morning if they were going to be that selfish. The girls called me and I drove down to pick them up. I guess while I was driving to them, the girls went all out and cussed everyone out, and a lot of harsh words were exchanged. They also told them that they never got jobs and that I paid for their rent and other needs, and that this would be the last time they ever spoke to them. When I arrived, my brother was livid and accused me of brainwashing his daughters against him. Then, the days that followed, my father and other brother called me to tell me that I'm an a-hole for supporting the girls behind everyone's backs, and that if I didn't interfere, the girls would have learned their lesson and been back home by now. Info. My dad expected his kids to get jobs and pay our way, and by the time I was 16, this included my brothers, was kicked out by 18, literally a week after my birthday, and I really struggled. Instead of my brother rejecting that parenting style for his daughters, he reinforced it, but his wife won't allow him to do that to their kids. My niece's mother died due to an accidental overdose. She was addicted to prescription pills. I never contacted child services as they're useless. Someone did anonymously report them, and it took social workers a whole year to check things out. When they did, all they did was confirm the kids weren't beaten, that food was in the house, clean clothing, and that they had bedrooms. The only reason I ever stayed in contact with my family was because I couldn't bear to leave the girls. Not the a-hole. You're a fantastic aunt. Your brother and his wife and your father and other brother are all a-holes. 14 and asking them to pay rent? Absolutely not. Don't feel bad at all. All those adults should be ashamed of themselves for favoring the other kids over your nieces. They'll never talk to your brother again. They needed you and you had their backs. Imagine being 14 and scared that you have to find a way to get money for fear that your father and his wife will make your lives hell. They're awful people. You're such a great aunt, and he's mad that he tried to make them suffer, but they had backup. not the a-hole. Where is their biological mom in all of this? At least if you're in the US, CPS might have been interested in this arrangement back when they were 14 because parents are responsible for providing for their minor children. At 17, not so much. If you're able and willing to support them through college, good for you. You're more family to them than their dad and stepmom. Not the a-hole. Teach them that this is acceptable behavior. Those rules only apply to them, not the other kids. That's not parenting your kids at 14. Giving them necessities such as clothing, food, and hygiene products isn't illegal. I'm thinking that you might have even had similar experiences growing up, considering your own dad believes this was right. Let's be honest. They aren't going to miss the girls. They're going to miss everything they brought to the table. You stepped up when their father stepped out. I'd willingly be an a-hole 1,000,000 times over than subject my nieces to this treatment. They're lucky to have you. Next story. So, for a little context for this story, my dad and mom separated back at the beginning of quarantine, March 2020, and I moved into a new home with my mom the same month. My dad and I struggled to get along for a little while I was there, so we jumped ship as fast as possible. Now, fast forward to like April 2021. I was sitting in my room and my sister busted in and told me to check my dad's Facebook. He was posted with a woman who has the same name as my bio mom, and I was in absolute shock. The woman turned out to be his girlfriend, and I was slightly upset that he hadn't told either of his children. He called me later that night to do damage control because he allegedly didn't know his girlfriend was going to post him. He sadly didn't have much control over the situation as the damage had already been done. And now we catapult to August of this year, 2021. I was scrolling through Facebook. I'm friends with both my dad and his now wife. I came across a picture of her visiting with my family in New Jersey alongside my father, and she was wearing a ring. I sent a screenshot of the post to the sibling group chat and asked for confirmation that I was not crazy. They all agreed that this was a ring, but none of us knew that he planned to propose. We were still coping with the fact that he had a girlfriend. My birthday is on September 15th, and after weeks of no contact, she reached out and wished me a happy birthday. I took the plunge to be bold and congratulate her on the engagement, hoping she would bite. Much to my avail, she did. My father texted me less than 10 minutes ago to do damage control, but it was too late. Last jump to literally 2 days ago. I've been super stressed about scholarships and whatnot, mainly because my dad refuses to give us his tax information. I applied to QuestBridge and received an email from some schools that I wasn't eligible to match because my dad hadn't sent his stuff. I texted him about it and he didn't respond. When I checked my match decision, I was shocked to have matched with Northwestern. I was really excited and started telling all my family and friends. I forgot to tell him and he found out on Facebook. I didn't care to tell him because of how bad he'd made the process, and now he's angry that I withheld the information. Not the a-hole. Your father has found a person with your mom's name, so he doesn't slip when talking and gave her a ring without telling you because since you live with your mom, he didn't think it relevant. That absolutely sucks that he did that and then acted so non-supportive of your request for his info for your schooling. He doesn't have the right to be mad at anyone except himself for his behavior. You enjoy the victory of matching with a uni, and if I were you, I'd tell him your expectations for him so he can't claim to be unaware later. He's the a-hole in the situation. Not the a-hole. I don't know what happens in dad's brains after divorce and, in my case, death of my mom, but it's rarely good and often very what the F. I'm sorry it's been like this for you. It's disappointing and frustrating. I hope that somewhere down the line he gets his act together. He set the precedent. Not telling you he got engaged, that's sending a clear sign he doesn't want to share his life with you. This might be because he is just trying to move on as quickly as possible and cut ties with the past as he's hurting from the divorce, or he's just a ginormous a-hole. And on top of that, refusing to give you his tax info so you can struggle to get an education. Either he's some gangster and his tax info is bogus, or this is a person who has made a nice new bed for himself. Either way, not the a-hole. Next story. So I, 44 male, have an older sister, Miriam, 47 female, and she has a son, Javid, 18 male, with her husband, Joe, 51 male. My wife and I have 2 daughters, one 15 and the other 12, and no sons. My daughters love Javid like their big brother, and in our culture, he isn't their cousin but is their brother. My wife loves Javid like her own son. When I'd broach having a baby to give our kids a brother, she'd point out that they have him as a brother. She got me thinking that way too, as I love my sister and Javid is a good boy, but I do know he isn't my son, even if I love him like one. The point of contention is this. In September, Javid started university and his parents evicted him and made him take out loans because he's 18 now. This was odd to me since my parents never did any of that, but they're house rules. As my sister explained to me, this is what Joe's father did with him and he thinks it'll work because it has for him. Javid moved out to a place where he could pay low rent while also working as much as he could. He bombed all his midterms, so he came crying to my wife and I. I didn't want to take him in because that might ruin the relationship with my sister, which has been rocky. But my wife pointed out how much he was struggling and I agreed. We're not going to make him pay rent as I wouldn't ask that of my kids. I'm not going to ask it of him. We make him do chores like cleaning, watching our girls, getting groceries on our cash, and work a much lighter scheduler part-time job to focus on those loans and a tutor. In the weeks he's been here, he seems readier for his finals, but damage to his grades may already be done. My sister came over yesterday with Joe. They knew Javid was here. I didn't hide that from them, but they assumed that he was paying rent. After asking how much I charge, I admitted I don't, and Joe got all angry and told me I was undermining his authority. I pointed out my parents never charged me rent, and I wouldn't charge my kids rent, and I'm not going to treat Javid differently if he lives in my house. They left after that, and I got a text from Miriam saying that she and Joe weren't going to come over until I enforced their rules for Javid. I feel like an a-hole because I do love my sister and I don't want to cause her difficulties, but I don't want Javid to go down the wrong path since what was happening before was not working for him. Not the a-hole. It's your house, you make the rules. They also don't have authority over your nephew since he's an adult, and they made that clear by kicking him out when he turned 18. They don't get to kick him out and dictate how he moves forward. For whatever reason, your brother-in-law is hell-bent on making sure his son struggles and has a rough start in life. Maybe he believes it'll help him build character, who knows? Or maybe they don't want to look like bad parents since you're helping him and they're not. Regardless, you're doing the right thing by helping your nephew so he doesn't fall behind. Absolutely not the a-hole. He's 18 and they kicked him out. Their rules no longer apply. I applaud you and your wife for taking him in and providing for him better than his parents. Your sister and her husband care more about doing things the way Joe did it, rather than focusing on their child's success. University costs have skyrocketed since Joe was in school. The fact that he managed then doesn't mean he could today. They are the a-holes, not the a-hole. The only a-hole in the story is Joe. College in the 80s was a bargain compared to now, and rent as well as buying a place was easy. You show empathy and compassion towards a struggling teen where the parents can't be bothered to step up. Next post will be from your sister in the parenting subreddit titled, "Why won't my son talk to me anymore?"